How to take notes effectively in law school. Your professor is talking at warp speed. Case facts blend into procedural history, policy arguments, hypotheticals, and suddenly you've typed 3 pages without actually grasping what the holding was. If you've got a document called Civ Pro Notes Week 3 that's 47 pages long, you're working way too hard. The goal isn't to transcribe everything your professor says, it's to capture what actually matters in a format that helps you study and understand the material. Why transcribing everything backfires? Most students treat law school note-taking like undergrad. Type as fast as possible, sort it out later. This doesn't work for 3 reasons. First, when you're frantically typing every word, you're not thinking. You're not asking yourself how cases connect, why the court decided what it did, or how the rule applies in different situations. Law school is about analysis, not dictation. Second, that 200-page contracts document, you're never reading it before the exam. Even if you did, it wouldn't help much because verbatim notes lack the structure you need to actually learn. Third, transcription gives you a false sense of productivity. You feel like you're working because you're typing constantly, but come exam time, you'll have extensive notes and minimal understanding. Figure out what your professor actually cares about. Before you can take useful notes, you need to understand what your specific professor values. Some love policy discussions, others are all about precise rule statements, some test primarily through hypotheticals. Pay attention to where your professor spends time. If they spend 20 minutes on one case and 5 on another, your notes should reflect that. Look at old exams if available. They tell you what actually matters. And talk to students who've taken the class, not to get their outlines, but to understand what ended up being tested. Active note-taking methods that work. Structure your case briefs using IRAC. The IRAC method, issue, rule, analysis, conclusion, provides the framework lawyers use to organize legal analysis. Applying this structure to case briefs forces you to think like a lawyer from day one and creates notes that directly translate to exam success. Issue. Identify the precise legal question the court must resolve. Don't write generic questions like, was there consideration? Instead, frame issues that capture both the legal question and the key facts. Is a promise to refrain from asserting a legal claim adequate consideration if the claim would probably fail anyway? This specificity forces you to understand why the case matters and how it differs from others. Rule. State the legal principle that governs the issue. Be precise and complete. The court found consideration is useless. Instead, a promise to refrain from asserting a legal claim is adequate consideration as long as the claim was made in good faith, even if it likely would have failed. Your rule statement should be detailed enough that someone unfamiliar with the case could apply it to new facts. Analysis. This is where the court's reasoning lives. How did the court apply the rule to the facts? What factors mattered? What distinctions did they draw? Include only the facts that actually influence the legal analysis. Background information that doesn't affect the outcome should be excluded. The analysis section shows you how legal principles work in practice, which is exactly what you'll need to demonstrate on exams. Conclusion. State the court's holding specifically. The court found for the plaintiff tells you nothing. Instead, the promise to refrain from pursuing the claim constituted valid consideration because it was made in good faith, regardless of the claim's ultimate merit. Your conclusion should be detailed enough to distinguish this case from similar ones. Using IRAC consistently transforms case briefs from mere summaries into analytical tools. When you structure every case this way, you're training yourself to spot issues, articulate rules precisely, follow legal reasoning, and reach supported conclusions. Exactly what law school exams require. Synthesize rules as you go. After you've covered several cases on a topic, write a synthesis that pulls the principles together. Don't just list cases. Explain how they relate and what the general rule is. For example, consideration requires bargained for exchange plus legal detriment. Legal detriment means doing something you're not obligated to do, refraining from something you're entitled to do, or creating new legal relations. Different cases show variations on this. This is exactly what you'll need for exams, a clear framework that shows how everything fits together. Capture hypotheticals the right way. When your professor works through hypotheticals, don't just write down the answer. Write down how they analyzed it. What factors did they consider? What distinctions mattered? This shows you how to apply rules to new facts, which is what exams test. Keep a separate section for hypotheticals organized by legal principle. During exam prep, these become invaluable because they're basically practice problems with worked-out answers. Don't skip policy and critiques. Many professors test whether you understand why rules exist and what their weaknesses are. When they discuss policy rationales or criticisms, capture these separately. They're often what separates a mediocre exam answer from a strong one. What to leave out. Good note-taking is also about knowing what not to write down. Skip anything that's clearly explained in your casebook. Just note where to find it. Skip extensive case background that doesn't affect the legal analysis. If your professor runs through 10 variations on the same hypothetical, capture the principle and maybe 2 examples. You don't need all 10. War stories and personal anecdotes? Usually not exam material unless they illustrate a legal point. And if your professor explicitly says something won't be on the exam, believe them. Make your notes actually usable. Organization matters as much as content. Use consistent formatting. If holdings are always in bold, you'll find them easily later. Create a table of contents for each class, listing major topics and key cases. Date your notes so you can find specific discussions. Leave room to add connections and synthesis as you go. Some students keep separate documents for class notes versus their own analysis and connections. This prevents cluttered notes while ensuring you capture your developing understanding. The laptop versus handwriting. Question. Research shows handwriting forces better processing and retention because you can't transcribe verbatim, but handwritten notes are harder to organize and search. If you type, force yourself to engage actively. Use abbreviations and fragments instead of complete sentences. Add your own analysis in brackets or different colors. If you write by hand, develop a system for expanding your notes afterward. Some students find that thoughtfully retyping handwritten notes helps them learn. Or try a hybrid. Type basic case info before class, then add handwritten annotations during discussion. Whatever you choose, the key is avoiding passive transcription. Review regularly or your notes are useless. Taking notes is only half of it. Review them within 24 hours to fill gaps and clarify confusing points. At the end of each week, write a 1-page synthesis of what you learned and how cases connect. When you learn something new that relates to earlier material, add cross-references. These connections are exactly what professors test. And test yourself using your notes. Don't just reread them. Can you state the rule without looking? Explain the reasoning? Apply it to a new scenario? Common mistakes to avoid. Don't wait until December to really look at your September notes. Regular review throughout the semester is essential. Don't make notes so abbreviated that you can't understand them a month later. Don't ignore your professor's emphasis. If they spend serious time on something, so should your notes. And remember, notes are tools for learning, not achievements in themselves. If they're not helping you understand the material, change your approach. Build your own system. There's no perfect method that works for everyone. Experiment during your first semester. Pay attention to what helps you prepare for class and study effectively. By second semester, you should have a system that makes law school more manageable. The measure of good notes isn't how long or comprehensive they are. It's whether they help you understand legal principles and do well on exams. You're not creating a transcript of every class. You're building a study resource that captures what you need to succeed. That's both more useful and more achievable. Interested in learning about how law students throughout California use CEB resources to navigate law school? Follow CEB on TikTok.